Good evening, I'm Josh Cunnings with EnviroNews USA. As we follow the 2012 presidential race, this just in, an exclusive report from our local affiliate at EnviroNews Utah, where we have learned of some rather strange events surrounding, of all people right now, Josh Romney. Reporting from the Utah State Capitol in Salt Lake City is Heather Murdoch. Heather, this story emerging out of Utah's Duchesne County appears to concern some rather sticky circumstances for what sounds like a bunch of energy industry cowboys. What can you tell us?
Well, that's right, Josh. And when we started digging into this story, we uncovered some very interesting things. Held by many as our nation's most poisoned hotbed of source-polluting industry and, by and large, due to the Republican-dominated lop-sided legislature, the state of Utah has become a free-for-all fiesta for mineral barons and the profiteers of environmental waste. Today we zero in on what once was a relatively small and unlined earthen disposal pit located deep within the vast bosom of the Uinta Basin. Closed and abandoned for many years, this little tar scar now looks like this: a gigantic and stinking multi-tiered series of waste ponds that carry the rather innocuous name of integrated water management. One thing that raises the eyebrows about this waste operation in particular is the apparent cheap and haphazard corner-cutting path to profit that IWM has employed. Oftentimes, in state-of-the-art evaporation-style treatment facilities, waste is frequently rotated from one pond to another in an oxygenation effort that attempts to reduce noxious and foul odors. Even some oil field experts that we spoke to off the record privately referred to the Duchesne operation in terms such as rinky-dink and outdated. Integrated Water Management has recently shot onto the radar screen of the local media as dozens of outraged citizens, including many politically conservative residents who even support their families by working in local oil fields, have voiced complaints of outrage regarding the horrendous and sickening smell of the facility. A smell they contest causes health problems and described as, quote, nauseating, foul, sulfuric, and like a bad outhouse.
The sulfur, a rotten egg smell.
75-year-old Robert Fitzmaurice says he and his neighbors have been living with pungent smells for the last 2 years, and he claims the stench is causing all sorts of health problems.
It gives you nausea and lightheaded and causes your throat to be sore all the time. For you to come up there one time, oh, it smells bad, but it's not a big deal. But if you're smelling that every day, it's going to get you.
Local reporters keyed us in on the fact that the company has been leveraging down with legal power on inspection panels in an attempt to have an upcoming oil factory review moved to a later date during winter months. Due to the low level of evaporation that occurs in the chilly atmosphere of the Uinta Basin during the winter, measurable airborne contaminants would be at their lowest during the year, which residents have pointed out skews the numbers in IWM's favor. What has sparked controversy amongst inner circles is who is behind this company, Integrated Water Management. A Freedom of Information Act request and an in-house record search has revealed that the company's founders and present-day controllers are some of Utah's most prominent and powerful Mormon businessmen. Walter Plum III of the Boyer-Gardner Rocky Mountain real estate empire, alongside of the Republican Party's outspoken heir to the presidential candidacy, Josh Romney. At the same time, J.T. Martin, who conveniently enough is the son-in-law of head honch Kem Gardner of Boyer-Gardner, is the plant manager down at Integrated Water Management. And according to one local reporter who wished to remain anonymous due to fear of backlash, Martin and Integrated Waste Management blatantly denied the notion that Josh Romney is involved with the company. Continuing in our conversation with the journalist, we also ascertained that the company has now declared the reporter a hostile threat, her journalism biased, and has refused any further dialogue or contact. Well, according to our research, the journalist in question has had a long track record of fair, respectable reporting with a variety of different publications. Despite these reported denials of Romney involvement put forth by J.T. Martin and Integrated Water Management, what we uncovered reveals that Josh Romney and Walter Plum III were among the founding members of the Utah-based LLC, registered back in 2010, and information leaked to us via these same sources reveals that both men maintain interest in the oil waste disposal plant. The plot thickened late last summer when the mounting numbers of citizen complaints led to the Tri-County Department suggesting that the Duchesne County Planning Commission put forth a public hearing to examine if the company is in compliance with the odor control parameters laid out in their conditional use permit. Regarding this September hearing, that same anonymous reporter told us, and certainly something we can understand here at EnviroNews, is that when she arrived at the public meeting, she was expecting to see, as we often see, 3 or 4 people in the crowd muttering out a few points of concern while the issue at hand flies quietly over the heads of the general populace. However, in her words, what she walked into this time was a huge surprise as she looked at the totally packed house, filled to the gills with outraged citizens figuratively on the brink of bringing out their pitchforks. Local Uinta Basin Standard reporter who broke a story regarding integrated water management back in September of this year used these words in her article describing what she witnessed at the meeting. Quote, "After a very heated 3-hour meeting, which at times threatened to erupt, and when J.T. Martin first stood to address both the commission and the audience with a PowerPoint presentation about IWM, the gathering threatened to turn unruly when 2 people shouted out, including one woman who yelled, quote, 'You're killing us.' The fiasco was furthered when at a follow-up meeting days later, the attorneys of IWM cried and pouted about the rules of order not being enforced at the first public meeting, and they were able to get the event successfully postponed until a later date, swearing up and down that it was not using any stalling tactics. The drama was exacerbated when J.T. Martin, claiming a threat to his personal safety, asked for a police escort to his truck. Now, there are several oil companies such as Bill Barrett Corporation, EP Production Company, formerly El Paso, as well as other area operators that are benefiting from the convenience of doing business with IWM as they huck and chuck their pillaged waste by the wayside, laughing all the way to the bank on the back of sick local residents, to the disgruntlement of many local residents and oil industry workers. J.T. Martin has openly and publicly chastised these same oil producers, his own company's customers that is, as being the responsible party for the waste and the smell. Shifting gears back to Josh Romney, who has been politically vocal throughout the presidential campaign, as well as accusatory of the Obama's policies, opens himself up to criticism on the stripes of his own merit, or shall we say lack thereof. The silver-spooned Harvard schoolboy has shown questionable choices of judgment on what has been referred to by some pundits as a trial of buffoonery throughout the campaign season. This was brought clearly to light last summer by the outraged booing from the Ron Paul-laced crowd as he violated party rules in a direct and ignorant endorsement of his delegate, his own daddy of course, at the GOP delegates convention last summer.
Well, the supporters of Ron Paul not showing a lot of love to the son of Governor Mitt Romney. According to the Arizona Republic, Josh Romney was speaking at the Arizona Republican Party convention, trying to win support for his father's nomination. But the audience of GOP members having none of it, booing Josh Romney off the stage. Take a listen.
When my dad realized that he was going to be the next Republican nominee for President of the United States of America, I was actually with him.
Josh is the third of Mitt Romney's 5 sons, by the way. He tried to calm the crowd down, but was repeatedly cut short.
Make sure that it says paid for Romney and that it's green. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
From the rafters, it looks something like this.
No, they couldn't argue with anything that was said.
Ken Bennett, Arizona's Secretary of State, paid a visit to the unruly Ron Paul support in an attempt to shut down their vocal outrage at the clear violation. And here's how far he got.
to me that I am, huh? The 100th person in the Republican Party that has told me not to speak. No offense, sir. I appreciate your concern,
we go to,
but no.
Legislative district meetings, county meetings, we are told to shut up and go away. We are told that we do not belong in this party.
I think you all know that I got into
No, but you came over here to tell us to please shut up.
The first part of that is make sure
somebody else I respect your suggestion, and I respectfully decline it. Thank you for your time.
Fought that issue. She can't join it.
This is the same Ken Bennett whose son was recently convicted of raping 18 young boys up the rectum with a broomstick, by the way. While we were engaged in our own vigorous mining operation of data and information, another nasty little tidbit of information came our way via our anonymous and covert oil industry correspondence that reveals that one of the consultants who has been instrumental in heralding the Romney, Plum, and Gardner's family's oil business entry and involvement is a well-known, convicted, and formerly imprisoned child molester by the name of Cliff Murray.
Wow, that's some pretty amazing stuff there, Heather. And just to think, this is the company these men choose to keep. How amazing to get a peek into the daily business affairs of another Romney heir, silver-spooned and groomed to rape and pillage the environment at all of our expense. Indeed, this is a slimy and rather grimy tale. Upon catching wind of this story, Heather, we did a little investigating ourselves. We looked into the public records and portfolios of the father-son duo of Mitt and Josh Romney, and what we discovered wasn't much of a surprise. I'm sure no one will be dismayed to hear that this duo's business ventures are not generally leaving any green footprints behind, but instead are stamping carbon and chemical waste tracks throughout the USA and the whole world. From Russia's Gazprom to China's Snook, Mitt Romney stands there in hypocrisy. While talking tough on China, he's there all along, holding a healthy chunk of Snook stock right in his back pocket. This is China's third largest oil company, folks, which, by the way, just loves to do business with Iran. We conducted a search of Utah state and federal court records, and certainly it appears that these prominent Utah businessmen with no prior oil and gas operations experience have cowboyed their way into multiple oil-filled entanglements, barely 3 years into their corporate plunderings. Dating back to the late Governor George Romney, this family has cheered and vocally supported nearly every American war and confrontation, while not a single one of them has ever dared to enlist in our nation's armed forces. If they support these wars so much, then why not just strap on a uniform? I mean, I'm sure our soldier men and women in Afghanistan could really use another helping hand, don't you think?
The reason that he didn't serve in Vietnam was because it was against the religion. That's what I read.
No, that's not correct. He was serving his mission, and you know, my 5 sons have also served missions. None served in the military.
All of you served your church going on missions. Did you ever consider serving your country by putting on a uniform, by serving in the military?
You know, I think we can look at the guys who served in the military, men and women, and just say that's the biggest sacrifice you can make for your country. It's nothing any of us did, but we look at those guys with a tremendous amount of respect.
And Ben, do you regret you never served?
You know, I look at my life that I'm living right now, and I'm in residency, and I spend a lot of my time at the VA hospital. I get to work with vets who have made great sacrifices for this country, and I look at their lives, and hopefully I get to serve them a little bit too.
This is important. Not all Mormon men made Mitt Romney's choice. Not all of them hid behind the special deferment that they were offered. Some Mormon men did their missionary service for their church and served in Vietnam. Brave Mormon men were killed in Vietnam, men Mitt Romney's age, while Mitt Romney was sitting out the war in France. Mitt Romney's father, George Romney, did not serve in the war of his era, World War II. You might have heard of that one. And George Romney's father never considered joining the American military because he spent much of his early life in Mexico.
And now we have a man in Mitt, whose buffoonery rings loud and clear as he staggers around, attempting to cover tracks regarding his true and previously expressed thoughts regarding our own nation's emergency response capabilities. Throughout his flip-floppery, Romney claims FEMA should go back to the states, or even better, to the elite, money-mongering, oil and gas-backed private sector.
FEMA's about to run out of money, and there are some people who say do it on a case-by-case basis, and some people who say, you know, maybe we're learning a lesson here that the states should take on more of this role. How do you deal with something like that?
Absolutely. Every time you have an occasion to take something from the federal government and send it back to the states, that's the right direction. And if you can go even further and send it back to the private sector, that's even better. Instead of thinking in the federal budget, what we should cut, we should ask ourselves the opposite question. What should we keep?
Oh yes, brilliant. Let's put our government crisis response program in the hands of these corner-cutting profiteers whose primary modus operandi and very duty seems to be pandering to their shareholders and bolstering their own bottom line. What a great idea.
Would President Romney actually get rid of FEMA like he said would be the right thing to do? Just let the states handle it? You take care of it on your own, New Jersey? There's no help for you? Is that what he means? You'd give it to business even if you could? Reporters who follow the Romney campaign tried to get the candidate to answer that question today many, many times.
Thanks for your help this morning.
I don't know if it was 14. We actually counted up, as you saw there, it was 11 times, at least in that one instance.
While Mitt and Josh abide by the Mormon word of wisdom, which prohibits them from partaking in so much as even a single cup of coffee, under the pretext of righteousness, they now turn around and install these noxious petroleum waste bombs, and then they invest in Chinese oil companies who are in bed with Iran. Oh, and let's not forget about the 1979 Mitt-sponsored Monsanto grand exit from their deadly tenure in the chemical industry, during which time the corporation killed entire river ecosystems from their poisonous PCB dumps, along with concocting chemical cocktails like Agent Orange. Subsequently, enabled by Romney's own Bain Capital, they were empowered to make a leap into a Frankenstein-like Bain Child brand of bioengineering, and as of late, they've been achieving worldwide headlines, earning the accusation of the fostering of a global food supply domination scheme. All in all, it seems the Romney family is in cahoots with some rather dubious characters. From pit to pond, this whole operation stinks to high heaven of daddy's dirty money. For EnviroNews USA, this is Josh Cunnings.
I'm a gremlin. I'm leaving the party. Now I want everyone to stuff the ice chest. Thank you.